and call the meeting to order. Item 2 is additions, deletions, or corrections to our agenda. I do have one deletion, item 8. We kind of got a little ahead of ourselves to bring Ashley in from Colorado Springs. So we're going to postpone that. Maybe also look at doing like a workshop with multiple entities where she may come in and talk to us. And then the other thing, we had an item on oversight of WI type codes, and I think we need to run that to ground before we get a little carried away, because if we're not careful, we may actually implement something that we have to do oversight on, and we may not have the capabilities in town to do it. So I thought it'd be best just kind of postpone that piece for now. Do we have any other additions, deletions, or corrections to our agenda? Okay, so Julia, we'll go ahead and scrap item 8. I don't think we have to vote on that.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to point out that I revised the agenda yesterday right around midday, so I can put that into the chat. It does take out the wildland urban interface item that you were just mentioning. And I'm happy to put that in the chat right now. It was posted. I didn't send out an additional email.
Okay. Yeah, I was just pulling up the packet. The packet still has the original agenda in it. So you have, hang on a minute. I want to actually, now I'll just, so we just only have a total of 10 items, right?
I'm going to go ahead and share the screen because I'm
okay.
having a hard time juggling this right now.
Yeah. Yeah, the one in the packet that I just pulled up still had item 8 in it, so.
Am I muted? So there's
no, it's not coming
through. Can everyone see the agenda on screen 2?
No.
Interesting.
If you bear with me just a sec.
Just 1 second.
I wonder if I need to Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My apologies as well. I needed to refresh.
The agenda packet altogether should be revised to reflect this agenda as well.
Yeah. My apologies. Sometimes if I don't refresh, it keeps it in cache, and I ended up pulling up the old one. So yeah, I'm seeing it now. So there's no item 8, so there's no deletion. The WI one isn't in there, so we don't need to delete. My apologies. So, okay. If there's no other additions, deletions, or corrections, we'll go ahead and move on to item 3, approval of the minutes from April 27th. Do we have any comments or corrections? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. We have a second.
Todd, this is Paul. I'll second. And let me just take the chance to comment. I'm on the road with limited bandwidth, so I'm going to keep my camera off, but I'm listening on audio.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we approve the minutes for April 27th? All in favor, say aye.
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 Were there any opposed? Okay, passes 4-0. Item number 4, public comment. Julia, did we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No one has contacted me, and I don't believe anyone contacted Zach. But someone, if there's someone who wants to speak, raise your hand and I can text, or I can put it in the chat.
Okay, Julia, I'm not seeing anyone. So, okay. Well, that will go into our open up our public hearing under new business. On first item under that, item 5, fence permit at 10310 Mountain Avenue. And Julia, if you could go ahead with the staff report on that one.
Yes, am I unmuted?
You're okay. Yeah, we hear you.
So this first item is a fence permit. It's fairly straightforward. It has outlined. The fence meets all standards in section 16-501, and the only missing portion, which I saw that the applicant is here, so we can clarify that, is the permit fee per section 16-707. I believe it was mailed to town hall, so I'll have the town clerk confirm that, but that shouldn't hold us up. That is about all, except that we do like to remind, especially during the busy season coming on in the summer, we like to remind applicants that all of their contractors do need to have a GMF business license. The applications right now are 100% electronic, very easy to do. Other than that, this is a pretty straightforward fence permit, and the applicant is here.
Okay. Do we have any comments or statements that I believe it's Mr. Gustafson, if I pronounced that properly? Anything you'd like to, any statements you'd like to make or comments? This is typically what I do. I go to staff, go to applicant, and then we'll go to our commission. I'm not hearing you. It looks like you're unmuted. Yeah, we're still not hearing you. I'm going to type the number into the chat for the phone. It's 814 997 passcode 774139. Okay. And we'll give Mr. Gustafson a minute here to call in.
Hello?
Okay, yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, just muted the computer. Yeah, I didn't have any comment. I just had indicated, I'm sorry, I just indicated I wanted to get the fence built. That's all I said, sir.
Okay. Yeah, well, I like to give people opportunity to make statement or comment.
Appreciate
So,
that.
okay. Any questions from staff? Not from staff, from the commission to staff or Mr.
Ms. Simmons,
Gustafson.
I did mail that check to that PO Box 524. Like, I'm pretty tidy the day I did that email. So it's because I've had checks clear since that. So that's a little weird if y'all haven't gotten it.
It's entirely possible that the town clerk, I'm confident that we will see it and the clerk can just let me know this should be taken care of tomorrow.
Okay. And I know about the business fee. I did that the last time. If I do it myself, there's no fee though, right?
There's no business license, correct?
Okay, very good. Yeah, I have no other comment.
Okay, commissioners, questions for either staff or Mr. Gustafson? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd
This
like
is-
a motion. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
I was just gonna make a motion that we approve FEN 2021-01 fence permit.
And I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve fence permit FEN 2021-01 without any conditions. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Gustafson.
Thank you. Can I disconnect?
Yes, you can, unless you just want to stick
All right,
around.
well, have a great evening. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Next item up is a concept proposal to purchase town of Green Mountain Falls land at 7035 Oak Street. Mr. Clay Gafford, owner, and we'll proceed on with the staff report.
Okay, so this item, as you see in the packet, there's a considerable amount of materials that were submitted by the applicant. And we did include it in the March 2021 regular meeting as public testimony. The town manager and I were hoping to give Mr. Gafford an opportunity to give public comment and in turn have the planning commission give staff a little bit of direction on this. For the delays and miscommunications, Angie and I apologize, Mr. Gafford. So a number of land use approvals from the 1992 zoning ordinance have this kind of two-step presentation format. A recent annexation had that, replats by subdivision. There are a lot of, this is pretty common, and it just was the way it was done. We understand Mr. Gafford's concern over further delays and the potential high cost of a survey and hiring a consultant to do any sort of a site plan, especially since that expense could be unwarranted if the fair market value isn't agreed upon. A professional survey is not explicitly required by code for either the concept or the final presentation, just a quote, clear identification of the land to be purchased and a discussion of feasibility. The Planning Commission could reasonably make a recommendation without any of the items that I suggest in the staff report. The scope for tonight's item of business, I just want to be clear, one last thing. This does not include the proposed vacation of right-of-way, nor any sort of a subdivision replat, which is included in Mr. Gafford's materials. Just the procedure for the second presentation to the Planning Commission and the feasibility of sale of public land. This is a little bit confusing. We're working with our code the way it is, and it will be cleared up soon. I'd like to get some direction from the Planning Commission, and I'm sure Mr. Gafford, who I did see here, may want to speak on this.
Yeah, I saw Mr. Gafford there and not seeing him anymore.
This is
Hi, Clay.
Clay. My camera on my computer is going in and out on me. I can hear you, but my picture's gone away, so maybe it will come back.
I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Mr. Gafford's submittals tips for everyone to see if that would be helpful.
Okay. Okay, yeah, we're seeing your screen.
Are you seeing Mr. Gafford's letter?
Yes, yes, we're seeing the letter. Uh-huh.
Perfect. Okay, I don't have anything further to say. I will answer questions, absolutely. But this is really a conversation for the commission and possibly for the applicant.
Clay, before we get to you, I'm going to see if the commissioners want to ask Julia any questions on this.
This is Gregory.
Go ahead, Gregory.
Um, I've been on the planning commission for 4 or 5 years, and we've never done one of these since I've been here. Do you know when the last one? I know several of these have been done in the past because I got a list of about 30 of them that have transpired in the last 50 years around here. But this impacts the meets and bounds and legal description of the property. Not sure how you can do that without a legal survey, even if you can find the pins. Those are my questions is, when was the last one we did and what was the procedure we used for that one? And are we meeting the county's requirements for the assessor's department and anybody else that's involved in intergovernmental agencies that are going to want a legal definition of this property once the property line is changed?
Okay, I wasn't able to write down your questions quickly enough. So question one would be, when was the last one of these, meaning the sale of a town asset or town land?
Right. And what was the procedure they used?
So the procedure, our records are spotty. So the last one that I can see may not have been the last one, being it's been years. And it's possible that Mayor Newberry remembers something a little bit more recently. Nevertheless, the procedure, and we did check in with the town attorney, the procedure does follow that the applicant would have followed the procedure that's in the code, that's in the staff report, appear at the planning commission for this concept proposal type thing. And this is back when the clerk worked a little bit more closely with the planning commission. And it's hard to say how that checklist was developed. I have been developing all of the checklists of recent.
Okay, I did one of these as a homeowner back in the 90s. And we were required to get an engineer survey for the reasons that I've explained, that the bank is not going to accept a legal description that's not certified by a certified civil engineer. So those are the questions I want to bring up. How do we address that?
Okay, so one, I do recommend that a survey be conducted. However, it is not required by code for the planning commission to make a recommendation to the board of trustees.
That's a good answer.
It's actually, there are very few places in the code where a survey is required. And I'm just saying that for code. My recommendation would be to have a survey. Nevertheless, the planning commission could reasonably make a recommendation without one. That doesn't mean that we could have, that this could be finalized without a survey.
Yeah, Julia, I'm kind of wondering, since this is basically what we're considering the concept proposal, correct? I'm kind of wondering if we shouldn't basically make a recommendation to the board on the concept proposals, and I would suggest we split it between the house and the public lands. And then if those pass, then we can start looking at what the planning commission would require for the quote unquote formal submittal.
Okay, I think it'd be a good idea if we all together, because this is This is an outlier, and I feel like I keep saying that in these meetings, but we find plenty of, they're rife. So the presentations required to procure a grant of easement. Just kidding. Presentations required to purchase public land. So there's this step one, this concept approval, and there's step two, the formal submittal. If you go down further, the Planning Commission is charged with setting forth the guidelines in the form of checklists. I want to be clear to the commission that I did suggest a basic checklist for the applicant, which is in the staff report. And I'm toggling too many screens right now. I can get to that in a second. And the applicant would like to speak to that because of the delays that could occur and the cost to a sale this is just a recommendation to the board who will get into negotiations for the sale of the land.
Right.
I made a recommendation that this be the checklist. The Planning Commission could set the procedure and schedule a formal public hearing based on what it wants for a recommendation to the board.
Okay, commissioners' thoughts?
I think her check. Below that, I guess I'd like a little more clarification about determining the fair value. Is that something that the Planning Commission is involved with, or is that simply the Board of Trustees?
Yeah, looking to me like that's a Board of Trustee function, but Julia, correct me if I'm wrong.
That the Planning Commission just makes a recommendation, and Mayor Newberry is raising her hand.
Okay, yeah.
Just to
Mayor.
give you a little history, I remember when the last one of these was done, it was to sell very little, like very few square feet of road to the Little Beaver Inn, so that they actually had a footprint that wasn't being encroached by the road. As I recall, they did ask, they were asked to have a survey done, just as you said, to determine property lines. Historically, the town doesn't like to sell their town assets unless there is a proof of hardship, which does include if someone can't clear title because their property is partially on town property. So I just wanted to put that out there as to what some of the history has been.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. What about the thoughts of procedurally, kind of going through the two concepts, getting commission, and I think we probably ought to vote on each. But so the first concept would be conceptually, is the Planning Commission okay with recommending the sale of the property so that Mr. Gafford can clear his title? Go ahead, Gregory.
I think the question we have to answer first and foremost, is there a valid reason for doing this? And I think that's absolutely yes. I mean, he can't get title to the property. There's a lot of properties around here that are like that. And in order, to serve the property rights and property values of the owner, this is a valid reason for doing this. That's question number one. So yes, we have a basis of approving this and forwarding it to the Board of Trustees on that ground alone. And then we have procedural. I believe it it requires a survey. I hate to say that, but we were required to do it. I think the county's going to require it from the assessor's point of view. A lot of things, questions had to be answered, but changing ownership of a property, if you have defined property lines, you have corner stakes that are there, shouldn't be that big of a deal for a civil to validate that and redraw it. So
Yeah.
that's my
Uh,
suggestion.
Gregory, what about the public land, the lot that the town owns? Those are the ones where I was actually trying to separate it into two. So there'd be the piece of ground that goes with the house, and then there's a piece of ground that's basically a Green Mountain Falls owned lot.
So what's the question on the piece of ground that's owned?
I was thinking that to look at the concept, we
Mhm.
might want to look at conceptually the sale of the ground around the house property as one item, get a commission recommendation on that, and then look at the piece of ground, the lot that the town owns.
Yeah, the Old Town Hall property,
Right.
it is saleable right now. It is defined. I mean, it can be sold as is, but the encroachment into the easement by the front of the property is not defined. It has to be defined.
So what I'm trying to get at, commissioners, can we vote on the concept of it sounds like everyone's pretty much okay with the concept of the property surrounding the house and making a recommendation up to the board on that.
Okay.
Yes, Todd, but we can't make a recommendation about land that hasn't been surveyed because it's not defined. So
Yeah, this would be a concept. We're making a recommendation on the concept. We would then have to come up with the terms. If I'm looking at what's in the code correctly, the planning commission would basically have to come up with the terms for the formal. Okay, so conceptually, we'd be saying, hey, board, conceptually, we think this is okay, but here's all the additional work that's going to have to be done for the formal presentation. And then we'd have to look at that and then make a recommendation to the board on that.
So we could use Julia's checklist for that.
I would think we'd want to get board commission approval for the recommendation on the property first, and then we can look at what do we need to do. I'm trying to break this step as methodically as I can.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman,
Go ahead, Julia.
this is confusing, and I'm making it more confusing. First of all, we are talking about just the proposal to sell the town hall piece of property, and there's a little drawing of it on the screen. I believe you should see it. So there's this one component. There would be there would be a concept. So in other words, back in 1995, someone would have come forward with a concept, and the planning commission would have scheduled a second public hearing for the formal. So we want to be able, before the commission decides on the proposal and makes a recommendation, we want to know what is expected of the applicant.
Okay. What I'm trying to do, Julia, is trying to basically break this up in the little chunks of where we can hopefully get through it. The first chunk to me is the request for the sale of the property that's around the house so we can get his deed straightened out. That to me is item 1 or item A, or whatever we want to call it. And if we as a commission approve that concept in general, the sale, then the commission needs to come up with, okay, applicant, here's the things you're going to need to have for the formal submittal. Okay, now that's part A. Part B is the part that you're showing on screen. The sale of the lot that's next to the post office property, basically. And again, I would like to have the commission come in and say, are we okay with the concept? And if the commission is okay with the concept, then we establish what the applicant's going to need to do for the formal submittal. So it's kind of like 4 steps here, because there's, to me, it's 2 pieces of property and kind of a 2-step with each.
So Todd, the item A, as you described it, is the 8-foot by 20-foot property.
That's the property to getting cleared for the sale. I don't know if it's 8 foot by 20 or 20 by 50. It's 20. His letter says 20 by 50 section of Oak Street along the front.
That's actually part B. The part A, that's the 8-foot by 20-foot, is what you can't get clear title to due to this encroachment, is my understanding. But I may be reading this wrong.
Wait, I've been on Oak Street. Section 1920. I'm reading again. It looks like he's wanting to purchase 20 by 50 foot section of Oak Street. Then second.
Is the 25 by 140 foot? Is the,
If we can please use addresses, the only consideration the planning commission is considering tonight is the Old Town Hall lot at 7035 Oak Street. The right of way, the question of the sale of the right of way will have to be on another agenda, because that is part of a replat.
Okay, say that again, because my connection went unstable. I'm sorry. I didn't hear 90% of it.
Okay, for this evening, for this item, for the consideration of the planning commission tonight, the only thing that is on the agenda is the proposal to purchase the Old Town Hall lot at 7035 Oak Street. Mr. Gafford's, the applicant, his home sits at 7045 Oak Street. That, the potential and the proposal for vacating the right-of-way, as is in his letter, will be on another agenda. Because that will involve-
I'm sorry, I got really confused with that, because I was thinking we were looking at both pieces of property tonight.
Yeah, that is confusing.
My apologies. I was really thinking this was just on, I was thinking this was on both pieces.
Mr. Gafford's proposal is for essentially 3 separate things, which would be vacating the right-of-way, purchasing 7035 Oak Street, and then replatting the entire lot. Those are 3 separate items.
Okay. So he's gonna need to come back to us again with the proposal for the others.
For the vacation of right-of-way. So let's stay on.
I'm sorry,
I
misunderstood.
want to make sure we are discussing 7035 Oak Street that is currently town hall property.
Okay. So, sorry, commissioners, and my apologies. This is just for the piece of Green Mountain Falls owned property that the town hall used to sit on.
this does not cause any kind of problem getting clear title or anything like that. There's no encroachment on this property. Correct?
Mr. Matthews, if you're asking me, I can't answer that because I don't have a survey in front of me.
Okay.
And Mr. Gafford may be able to help answer this question, but I don't have a survey.
Okay. The, so we would be, again, in my mind, in order to follow what's in the code, we would be basically looking at the concept and coming up with what he would need for the formal submittal.
Okay, so we can can I just comment?
Yeah, go, please.
Okay, we're dealing with the parcel where the old town hall used to be only tonight. That's correct.
Correct.
It seems to me like the parcel that the post office is on belongs to the town and the post office leases it from them.
No.
Okay, then who's the property owner next door?
That is, I looked his name up earlier. It's an,
The Penmans own the post office property.
okay.
Okay. So,
And there is that, looks like a, storage facility, I think.
Right. but that's all one parcel there with the post office, and
Yeah.
that's not postal service property.
Correct.
No, the Penmans own all that property.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. And there is like a roadway down beside there, but that's on Tenman's property, right? A dirt road.
There's really there's no platted alleyway or right of way, except
Okay.
where you see it kind of going from the lower part up. I think that might be a little bit of a right of way in there.
Okay.
Again, commissioners, all the assumptions about right-of-way, title, all we're looking at right now is the assessor's site, and we can't ever confirm that it's 100% correct without a title. I'm sorry, without a survey.
Okay.
How can we make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees without a survey if we don't even know what we're recommending?
At this point, you are recommending simply what is going to be asked of the applicant. If the commission feels that they cannot make a recommendation without a survey, then that is what you would make the checklist. The applicant was correct. I don't determine those things. The planning commission does. This is a procedural. Again, it's an outlier. And
Yeah.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Back to the same, if this is what's before the commission, if this is the question we're supposed to answer today, is there a valid reason for selling town property that benefits the town? The mayor said a few minutes ago, it's not accustomed to selling town property, the Board of Trustees, unless it's necessary. Is it necessary that we sell this property? And in order to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, we have to have a reason for making that recommendation. And that's my question is, do we have one?
I go back to Julia's comment about the survey. The reason for recommending it would be an encroachment, and we don't know without a survey, it sounds like.
And I don't think that lot encroaches on the only thing that could encroach is a structure. The lot itself can't encroach on the easement. So
I'm gonna chime in with my 2 cents worth on
okay.
this. I'll be honest, I'm not in favor of selling that lot conceptually. The reason is that if we ever have any kind of downtown development, that lot could really help out if we need a right of way or anything like that to lay in utilities. It'd make a really nice walkway. You know, if we ever wanted to develop it into a walkway between Oak Street and like the green box area. So yeah, I'm not in favor of the town selling the lot.
Well, I agree with you, Chairman. In addition to your comments, the our plan for the town, comprehensive plan talks about adding businesses, and this is right in the sort of middle of what is our commercial area. And so whether it's another business that would be placed there or whatever, I feel like it could interfere with that goal of the comprehensive plan.
So yeah, we haven't heard from Clay yet, and we probably ought to hear from Clay before we get too carried away. So Clay, if you're,
Yes, can you
you're
hear
on.
me?
Yeah, you're on. You got the floor.
Okay, thank you. I've lived here, and when the town burnt down, and the property became vacant, and it was my thought that the town wouldn't or be possibly want to sell it because the lot is so small. It's not large enough per the current regulations to build anything on. It's only 25 feet wide, and it doesn't have the total square footage, and it's in a floodplain. So because it couldn't meet any of the building requirements to do anything with, was one of the reasons that I decided that I would see if you would be interested in selling it. It does also, right now you're getting no revenue on the property. There's no taxes being paid on it. If I was to purchase it, you would have money from the purchase, as well as it would be a taxable piece of property where you would be getting taxes on it. Secondly, there's an old septic system that was abandoned when the town, there's some liability with the property the way it is now. There's a septic system on there with the 2 tank access points are readily available right at the very front of the lot. And then there's 3 old cesspool rings in the back that were never removed. They were just covered over when it burnt down. And the area never really was cleaned up very good after the town fire. It was pretty much big parts were hauled off, and then a bunch of dirt was dumped over the top of it. It raised the level of that lot up a good 12 inches in places. So with those being my thought that the town might want to get rid of it is why I came up and thought that plus it would be very beneficial to me. It would give me off-street parking, and it would make, I could have more privacy with my residents here. So those are the reasons that I thought I would see if the town was interested in selling the property. When it came up that I needed a survey, my concern there was that I would put out a lot of money to get a survey to try to buy a piece of property, to find out that the planning commission, like you're saying, you don't really agree with the concept, or the town council does not want to sell it, or the price is too high. I've put out a lot of money on something to buy a piece of land that you may not even want to sell. So I'm happy that the conceptual, you guys are figuring that out now before I have to spend money to get a survey on something you don't want to sell. I agree that I need a survey for the vacation of the right-of-way, which will be the next step, even if you guys decide not to sell the old town hall lot, and I decide to try to get enough property so I have legal access. I understand I would need a survey for that, and I agree.
Yeah, that's where I was trying to go, and my apologies for trying to roll all this both in the one tonight. I kind of goofed on that. But yeah, to me, trying to get the kind of the thumbs up, so to speak, on the basic concept, and then having everyone give the thumbs up on the basic concept, and then proceeding on to, okay, here's the things that have been identified. Once everyone gives the thumbs up on the concept, here's the things that you'll need to do. To me, that's what I got from the code. It was basically someone comes forward with, here's a concept. Do we get all the thumbs up between planning commission and board of trustees? If so, planning planning commission does come up with, here's the items that we think you need to address, but you deal with the concept first. So, and just like you said, it's to try to help keep people from spending a lot of money before, on something that, a board may not agree with.
Hey, Todd, this is Paul.
Yeah.
So I'm struggling to clarify this issue too. It seems like the valid approaches that we could take are, one, to forward the proposal to the board with a recommendation for approval, or at least continuing the process, or forward the recommendation with a recommendation for disapproval of continuing the process. But neither of those would require a survey, because as we pointed out, it seems like the concept comes first, and if conceptually the board rejects it, then there's no need to go any further. Only if the board were to agree with the concept would there be a need for a survey. Is that a valid description of the state of play?
That's what I was getting from it. We worked the concept first, and on this one, we just have the one piece of that the old town hall lot. Conceptually, do we agree with it? Yay, nay. If we come up and we do agree with it as a board, then we need to identify, in my opinion, we should identify the things that should be needed for the formal approval later on. But the concept would be the only thing at this point in time that would be going forward to the Board of Trustees.
And in either case, no matter what our recommendation would be, it would still go forward to the board, and Clay would still have a chance to make his case to the board. Is that correct?
Correct. That's
Yeah.
my understanding of it. We, say for example, we don't recommend approving the concept. I would think that Clay would have an opportunity to take that in front of the board and say, appeal it basically.
Right.
And Julia, please jump in if I'm heading down another rabbit hole.
I just want to make sure that everyone can see that the presentation requirements are on the steps are on the screen. And I appreciate the conversation. And I think Mr. Williamson touched on this. This would be certainly an easier for the commission to consider with a little bit of education if there were a staff report, right? If I were able to hand over a lot of information and the code requirements, that's usually what the commission is using to make a decision. Right now, all I need to know is what the commission wants to see from the applicant so that I can present a staff report. I suppose if the concept is entirely unpalatable, that's also feedback.
But
Nevertheless,
what happens if we say this is unpalatable to our committee? What happens next?
I call the town attorney. And that was the next piece I was going to give, was if the commission needs guidance from the town attorney, that will be at the discretion of the town manager. But it's not unwarranted to ask the town attorney his opinion.
Because what I see under section that you're showing us right now, 118, the first presentation shall include clear identification of the land to be purchased, which would require a survey to be done.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
It is a clearly defined lot. It exists on the county assessor's map as a defined lot. It is saleable. It can be sold as is without resurveying it. And for me, the question is, does this have any value to the town? And I'm looking at it, I'm going, it doesn't have any value as an easement. I agree with the applicant that it can't be built on. if it came before the planning commission, I would vote no, you can't build on that. It doesn't meet our requirements. So basically, it's a piece of land that has no value to the town. We can't use it in the future. It has value, a sale value. It has a tax value. I agree with the applicant on those two items. I'm looking at this going, this is a simple property sale, a buyer and a seller. Doesn't matter whether it's the town or not. There's a lot that exists. It is well defined. Somebody made an offer on it. Doesn't matter who the seller is. They could sell it right now. So the question is, do we as a commission believe this is what's best for the town? As a commissioner, I believe this has more value as a saleable piece of property. I don't think it has value as an easement. You can't build on it. It's going to sit there forever. And it could have some value to the town. So I'm suggesting that we forward this to the Board of Trustees with a recommendation that they sell the lot, as is defined by the county assessor's map. So that's my opinion.
And Gregory, if I could just build on that. So, and because this is a multi-step process, our recommendation would actually be to continue that process, to go on to the next step, because the next step would not be sale, right?
Correct. The next step would be formal presentation.
Right. And so we can, if we so choose, we can recommend approval of the concept and continuation of the process. That process might ultimately result in the sale, but that the sale is not the next step.
No, it is the concept.
Yeah. Has anyone contacted the owner of the property has got that, those storage units on it?
About what? This was Clay. About what would the Penmans need to be contacted?
Sometimes we get input from adjacent property owners actually, we've gotten it on several things before.
Again, I'd like to comment. This is a buyer offering to buy a piece of property from a seller. I don't think that applies here. I don't think, unless we want to list the property and, make it open to the public. We have a private buyer offering a private sale. Is that concept all right with you? Or should we recommend to the Board of Trustees that this be an open sale and listed?
I would be more comfortable with that to determine the market value, but I don't know if that's part of our concept here or not.
I mean, we still haven't talked about price and how to establish price on a lot because we're not there yet. We're still
Right.
talking about,
What she said,
does the
Mike.
planning commission feel like the concept of selling this lot is in the town's best interest?
Is that the BOT that decides that? Can we simply make a recommendation that they consider it further and leave it at that, rather than making a recommendation that we think it's in the best interest of the town to sell it? That's kind of their decision. Can we just say, we're recommending that the BOT take a look at it and go through this checklist process?
I would think personally, I would think the BOT would say, hey, commission, what do you think? Do you think we should sell it or not? That's the
what we're
basic
here.
question. That would, if I was on the BOT, that would be, and I had a subcommittee, I'd be saying, okay, do you guys think we should sell this? Yes, no.
Another comment.
Go ahead.
And Clay brought up a valid point too. If the property is too expensive, if it turns out that the valuation of it's higher than he wants to pay, then this concept point two. But I do want to pull back. Our job here is to look at this concept and as a board, evaluate it from the perspective of does it benefit the town or not? And I want to emphasize that we can disagree. Some of us can say, no, we need to hold on to this property. And that's what we need to tell the Board of Trustees after we've thoroughly investigated what's the potential. This is a concept. It's a concept of a sale of an existing lot. We need to get to the place where we're, as a board, speaking as one, going, we're either for it or we're not.
Yeah, and on something like this, with each person present, I would think we would give a
We lost you, Todd.
kind of like it's kind of that quasi judicial thing. If you think a
Yeah.
Supreme Court. guys,
We missed about 3 sentences.
missed about 3 sentences.
Mhm.
Yeah, sometimes the internet goes unstable. I've noticed on these things. I'll be glad when we're back in full face-to-face meetings. And I forgot what I was saying. So anyway, I think just to regroup, I think Gregory has stated that we need to basically look at it from a commission as, is this in the best interest of the town, and make that recommendation up to the board. My statement was, I was thinking, since we're kind of in a quasi judicial role here, that we might want to add in statements on why we voted the way we did, or will. So yeah, if we're at the point where we're looking at wherever I think everyone's fairly comfortable with conceptually, is this in the best interest of the town to sell this, and making that recommendation up to the board. Then we could probably proceed on, or we can continue the discussion to make sure we're all clear on what we're doing.
Todd, is there more information that we would need to make a big statement like we think this is in the best interest of the town to sell? Like discover, can this land possibly be used for utilities or as an easement as you described? Or is that impossible to do?
Yeah, I don't know. To me, that, I'm just looking at potential future. Personally, I'm looking at potential future development. I'm one that tends to not like to sell property. Just because you never know 5-10 years down the road what may happen, and then you go, darn, I wish we had that back.
Don't have that option anymore, right?
Yeah. That's just my own personal opinion. I tend to be a kind of a property hoarder, I guess.
Well, I just didn't know if we needed more information about whether or not that is realistic.
With what we know today, I think we could probably go in and say, hey, Board of Trustees, we think this is either in the best interest of the town or not in the best interest of the town, and make the recommendation either way.
Also need to make recommendations about, let's say we decide that it's in the best interest of the town. Do we need to make further recommendations about the process for the second presentation?
We could either try to go through that tonight, options on that. We could go through it tonight and try to come up with a checklist. We could give an assignment to staff to come up, and they've actually given us, a checklist in part of our package already, I believe. Or if we, so the options are we kind of come up with one ourselves, or we say, we think this needs a little bit more baking. Staff go back and let's take a little bit more look, and we give them direction on maybe things we think may be deficient. So there's a couple options on that if the commission decides to submit this to the board as a we think it's in the town's best interest to sell.
This is Gregory.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we need to take a vote whether we as a commission want to pursue this concept. And if the answer is yes, then we can give direction to staff to do some research and investigation and come back with requirements that we would give to the potential buyer if we are going to submit this to the Board of Trustees. So step one is, do we as a board agree with the concept?
I think that's what I've been trying to promote. I don't know if I've actually been coming across very clearly or not, but we basically address the concept, and then if it's positive up to the board, then we start looking at what's required for the formal submittal, and there's different actions we can take on that. We can either try to do it tonight, or we can look at what's there and say and redirect. But
So-
yes, one would be to basically vote on the concept.
So Todd, if I could maybe try to craft this into a motion. So could we propose a motion to forward this concept to the board with a recommendation for favorable consideration, and direct staff to identify the further steps necessary to consider the concept for sale?
Actually, I would maybe suggest that we just keep the concept, like I think like Gregory's been saying. I think you've kind of crafted at least draft motion language of forwarding to the Board of Trustees with a favorable consideration. And then we put that piece to bed, and then we start working the piece of what needs to be done next.
Okay, split those out.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So is that a motion?
Oh, okay, so let me try. I propose a motion that we forward to the board a recommendation for favorable consideration to continue the process for 7035 Oak Street sale. Period.
Okay.
Discussion?
Gregory, was that a second?
No, it's discussion.
Discussion. Okay.
Are we a little premature of forwarding it to the Board of Trustees? We're going to have a second presentation to the Planning Commission. Does the Planning Commission agree that we need to pursue this or not? It's a black and white question. The second one is, we need to find out if this is a saleable lot by contacting the county assessor's office and say, can we sell this lot as it is? We need to find out what the appraised value of it is. This list needs to be made before we present to the Board of Trustees. We need to present to them, this is the criteria by which we are presenting this.
Yeah, it's just that if the basic concept fails, then
And we're done.
the basically the communication to the board is we're basically making a recommendation for that the town do not sell, because I think the board is the ultimate authority on chiming in on whether, I mean, they have to be the ones that chime in on whether there's an actual sale or not. The code has kind of broken it into concept and then formal. And so that's why I keep driving back to, you know, just a basic concept. Are we on board with the basic concept as a commission? If yes, okay, Board of Trustees, we were on board with it. Board of Trustees also can chime in and say, we're not in favor of it, or vice versa. You know, if we're not in favor of it at the commission level, it goes up to them. Board of Trustees could say, yeah, we're actually in favor of it. So it's kind of getting over the conceptual piece, and then we moved into the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
Okay, just a comment.
Yeah.
This is Gregory.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm saying we have a preliminary presentation to the Planning Commission. When we have a formal presentation to the Planning Commission that precedes doing any kind of motion to the board to accept or deny. I'm saying let's not be not prepared enough. I mean, what is the appraised value of this land? Is it saleable as it is? Before we make a presentation to the Board of Trustees, or are we just doing too much work? This is confusing. It's like, we need to know what we're doing. And if it's just a concept that we're forwarding to the Board of Trustees, it's different than a recommendation for a sale. It's completely different.
Correct. And on what's up on the screen, section 11-118, item 3,
Right.
after required presentations, the Planning Commission will then make its recommendation to the Board of Trustees, which has
That's what
final.
I'm saying.
So right now we're just in the concept.
So
Yeah,
we as a
this is
board need to
conceptual.
decide if we're for it or against it.
Yeah, we as a board need to say, do we think this is in the best interest of the town? Yes, no. Then it go board. I keep calling us board. We as a commission need to say, do we think this is in the best interest of the town? Yes or no? And then from there, it goes to the board. Do they concur, basically? Now, once the board concurs, then that's the concept has gotten full approval. Once, however, at the same time, once we say, yea, verily, we think it's in the best interest of the town, I think we can go ahead and start putting together what's needed if the board says concurs that it's in the best interest of the town. So we're kind of running in background mode while the steps go up through the board.
Well, as I read number 1 there, as Gregory said, we don't know if it's a sellable lot. I feel like we can't vote on anything for this number 1 because the first presentation has not provided that clear information. And we are supposed to discuss the feasibility of the proposed easement. I don't see anywhere where we're supposed to give an opinion about whether we think it's in the best interest of the town. It's a discussion of feasibility.
Yeah, I was kind of paraphrasing that because some of the language in the code to me can get a little confusing. So it sounds conceptually, if you're saying, is this in the best interest of the town? The governing language is obviously in the code itself.
Well, maybe we just need to see where everybody is. At this point in time, I would not be able to vote for it being in the best interest of the town because I don't feel like I have enough information. So
Yeah.
that's where I am, but the majority may be in a different place.
Yeah. So Paul's actually made a motion that we forward this to the Board of Trustees for and basically for favorable consideration. In other words, he's made a motion that the commission is okay with the concept, so to speak. And I'm paraphrasing a lot, I realize. And so the next step would be we need to either second, and if there's no second, then the motion dies, and then we have to look at another motion.
I just want to have a little bit of input here. This is Jane. You can certainly send it to the board with a yay or nay concept, but I have the feeling the board would send it right back and say, we can't
Yeah.
make that decision without
Correct.
information such as how much is it worth? And what else could be done with it? Especially money. The board's going to ask the dollar signs.
Mayor, so you saying we should probably kind of do the presentation, the concept presentation and the formal presentation, and come to resolution and then send it to the board?
I think actually as much time as that would take, you're going to get it kicked back to you anyway. I don't know that for sure, but that's kind of the feeling that I would have is the board's going to say, we can't make a decision on something without any more concrete behind it. I mean, we could approve all day to sell our properties, but if we don't know what kind of financial implication it has outside of the tax ramifications, it's kind of hard to make that decision.
Yeah.
This probably isn't a fair question because you can't speak for the Board of Trustees. But I go full circle to what Clay said. He doesn't want to make a second presentation with pricing and surveys and all the hoops he would have to jump through if we're pretty sure the Board of Trustees isn't going to approve it. I know that's a hard thing for you to answer, Jane, but do you have a sense at all?
I can't speak for everybody, but it probably would come down to dollars and cents, and I don't know that it would be necessary to have a second formal presentation. What I've seen them do in the past is get an idea of what fair market value is for land, undeveloped land per square foot, run a cost up the flagpole, and then there's at least an idea of, is this enough? Is this not enough? Do we even want to sell it for that cost? The discussion that comes before the board more often than not with selling town land is it a good idea and does the applicant need it? And again, I can't make that decision for everybody, but that's going to be the questions that are going to be asked. You know, is there a hardship? And I think that's where you make the case for or against. Is there a hardship that's necessitating this?
I'd like to comment.
Go ahead.
That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is, does the city need it? Does it have any future value for the city, for the town of Green Mountain Falls? It's not myopic. There's several ways to look at this. And I think that's why we're looking at it as the Planning Commission. Is there a clear and compelling reason for selling the property? Is it a saleable piece of property, and how much is it worth? We've got to answer those three questions before we answer anything else. My opinion, sorry.
Well, if I could jump in, Greg, I mean, not necessarily, because if we recommend to the board a favorable consideration for sale,
Right.
They can still, they could opt for an open sale, as you pointed out, and we're not constraining any future options. What we're saying is, board, is this concept worth pursuing? And then we can define the mechanics of how we pursue it later.
But we
If-
have to pursue it.
Right, well, right, but if the market determines the price of the land, then we as a commission can't determine the market value of the land internally, right? We let the market do that, and an open sale would accomplish that goal.
Section 119's fair market value for public land is determined by the Board of Trustees on an annual basis. So
how do they do that?
value shall be based on the average square foot price of undeveloped but developable lots located within the boundaries of the town. Said fair market value shall be applied to the sale of any public land unless the Board of Trustees determines, after hearing evidence from the petitioning party, that said value is not appropriate in the case of a specific proposed purchase. If the petitioning party wishes the application of any other square footage price, petitioning party shall bear any costs incurred in determining said applicable price. So that's how they say you're supposed to determine the fair market value, and it is up to the Board of Trustees to determine it. And I guess that's where it comes down to the board saying, this is worth more to us to hold this land than what the fair market value seems to be today. And then that's their decision as well.
As with anything complicated, I try to see if there's chunks we can break it down into to help it be less complicated. In my mind, to me, step one is, does the commission think this is in the best interest of the town to sell this property? We do have a motion on the board that basically would capture, we do have a motion from Paul that would basically capture that. And so I'm going back and saying, we probably either need a second, or if there's no second, then that motion dies. And so I would say, Paul, just reiterating your motion, forward to the Board of Trustees for favorable consideration of the sale of that lot. Does that sound appropriate?
Right, yeah, and 7035 Oak Street, yes, and leave it at that.
Yeah.
With no additional mechanics and so on, yeah.
Is there a second? Okay, hearing no second, that motion actually dies. Is there another motion?
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we just go around the commission and find out where everybody's at?
Really, the proper way to do that, in my opinion, kind of with a vote, with a motion and a vote. I think you guys have heard my opinions throughout the discussion.
Because I don't see that we need a motion yet until we find out whether this concept is something the board as a whole is for.
Yeah, I think, well, let me take it back. I think as long as we're doing it in a public forum, we're okay.
Right.
I think I've made myself fairly clear. I'm not in favor.
All right, I'll speak up. I would be in favor of selling that lot.
I'm not in favor.
Yeah, this is Paul, I would be in favor.
Okay, hang on a minute. I need to kind of, Greg, hang on. And my pencil just broke. Greg, it was Lamar. Could you repeat?
I'm not in favor.
Not in favor. And
I just
Paul,
don't feel like I have enough information.
Paul, could you repeat?
I would be in favor.
Okay, so right now there's not a majority. We have an even number. We would have to have 3 out of the 4 for it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead.
if the commission believes that more information in the form of a staff report or a report from the town attorney or a report from the town manager would be more helpful, some additional information would help. on a second presentation, if that would be helpful. I'm looking for direction.
Okay. Commission, that is another option that we direct staff to come, and maybe even applicant. And so to some degree, I'm trying to see if we can do this without incurring a lot of costs on Clay, on something that may fail. And so
Well, what would the, Julia, how would the town attorney be able to give us guidance on this? It does seem very murky, and it is a one-off. Do you feel that that would be valuable? Would he have, or she have helpful guidance on this?
Town attorney will always have some sort of guidance, but it will be based on the code. It would be more helpful if we knew what the commission was looking for. And it could be, as you said, from the applicant, more information from the person who's looking to purchase the lot. A staff report would probably be very helpful. At this point, I don't have a procedure.
A staff report that could maybe address some of what Todd mentioned about other uses, possible uses for this land, such as easements for additional development in that area. If there could be an exception made for an itsy tiny coffee shop, I mean, that we could potentially build something that's not currently described as okay via code. I mean, just what are the possibilities of other use for this land? I'm just throwing out ideas.
I'd
Again,
like to make another comment.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think a cursory review by staff back to us with, is there any potential use for that lot? And I have a development background. I've been in it since the 70s. That's not a utility easement, never would be. In my opinion, I'm looking at it going, sorry, you can't build on it. You can't use it for a roadway. It's unnecessary from that standpoint. And then from Todd's standpoint, they don't make any more of it, so we should hang on to it. Maybe 10 years from now, there'll be something we look at and go, man, we're glad we kept that. But I can't see that from here. And I would like to address that. Is there any potential use of that property? And if there isn't, if you can't build on it, if it doesn't meet any of the zoning setbacks, I mean, if you got a building that's 3 feet by 3 feet, it's not going to fly. If it's not buildable at all, then your market value of it is not a whole lot, but your tax revenue on that over decades is. So before I send, well, let me back up. Before we send anything to the Board of Trustees as far as a recommendation, I would want to answer those questions like Jane said, or we're just going to get it back and we're going to go through all this again. So basically, is there any value in that property to the town? There is value to the potential buyer. Professional opinion is there isn't anything we can use that for now or in the future. So a staff report that addresses cursory value, I mean, what would the tax value of that be over the next 10 years? Can you determine that it's unbuildable by looking at the zoning and saying the setbacks mean you can't build anything there? And if you have to have a septic system, that's not going to fly. So basic information about that piece of property. Is it saleable like it is without a survey? I say yes, it is. But that needs to be validated by a staff report. It is saleable or it's not. It is usable or it's not. And some of the rest of my fellow planning commission members need to come up with what other issues do we need to address before we send this to the Board of Trustees for vote.
If there's a liability to the town for this property, what is the liability, if any?
Okay, I think Gregory's made some good comments there. We could do the thing of tabling until we get additional information from staff report. And that we can make a motion on that.
I'd like to make a motion that we table it until we get more information back from staff report. And I think, Julia, you've got a nice list there. I saw you taking notes. So.
Julia, were you able to capture everything? And if not, we're recording this, so I'm sure you can go back and look if you need to.
I would like to get some, well, go on. I'll get clarification in a minute.
Okay, yeah, my audio and video cut out there momentarily, so I didn't hear a lot of what you said. But if you're basically saying continue on with our motion, we can do that.
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved that we table it for additional information from staff. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we table this until we get additional information from staff. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, Julia, do you need additional clarification from us?
No, I have a motion and second. We'll move forward with that.
Okay, and you've got enough of a list to come back with. Okay. Okay. So yeah, that was item 6. Item number 7, resolution 2021-10, consideration of and recommendation to the Board of Trustees on a memorial bench and brick program. And we'll move into staff report on that.
Zachary, we can't hear you.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hopefully.
Yes.
Yep, we got you.
Okay, thank you. Right. So after the memorial bench donation from the Fox family, the town clerk had kind of taken the lead to create a memorial bench and brick program for the town. And more information was requested there. So we did a little bit of research on kind of what other municipalities are doing around that. Found that metal benches with concrete pads are really popular. There are a couple municipalities, Lafayette and Inglewood, have options for recycled plastic composite product for benches, which was pretty cool. I had trouble finding any towns really building wooden benches. But after doing some research, I have a few recommendations to consider here. So the first one would be to possibly follow the example of Inglewood. They, as of January, went to not having a flat donation or fee for that. And they basically just go on a case-by-case basis where they receive a quote and go from there. That might be a route to consider given what has happened with construction costs and raw material costs recently. Next, the town could consider offering more than one option of pre-approved bench styles. This is something that's already in the resolution. Another point to consider that was really important is the town reserving the right to relocate or remove benches if it becomes necessary for other projects. And I believe that's in point 7 of the existing resolution. And then finally, something that might be good to consider would be having guidelines around the text that is on the actual plaques or in the bricks there. Pretty much all of the other programs had rules or guidelines around prohibiting advertising and logos, offensive language, things of that nature. So just some things to consider.
Okay, commissioners, questions for staff?
Okay, I'll jump in.
Okay,
I like what the Fox family did. They designed it, they provided it, they installed it. It went through the planning process. We got to approve it. We're not going to approve any offensive language or bad advertising. We're not going to approve something that doesn't fit with our community. And I'm really not into cookie cutter anything, if benches or whatever. If a family or an individual wants to donate a bench to our park system, I think they should have the freedom to make a proposal to the planning commission and say, this is what we'd like to do.
Zach, you may want to scroll down to the actual policy under item 1. It looks to me like that capability may exist. I'm not getting the feel from the item 1 that we're actually dictating way 2 styles. So where it says town may provide for several bench or brick styles or materials when setting the fee for the memorial bench or brick. We do limit the maximum number of lines. We do the policy currently limits it to a bronze plaque with a maximum of 3 lines in a certain size. That was, now am I reading that correctly? Zach and Julia, are we not trying to basically say, here's a couple options? Or are we trying to do that?
Zach, are you speaking to this? Or did you?
I can't. I didn't write the resolution, so I can't speak to that. My intent was to just kind of provide information of what other surrounding towns are doing. So that's what I can say about that.
Zach, another way to ask that question would be, what's been written here, would it keep the Fox family from doing what they did?
That's a good question. I don't believe it would, but I would ask Julia that question.
One other comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's wrong with the process we went through with the Foxes? It just seems like another layer of something that's not necessary to me.
Well, I can speak to that a little bit just from the history of the benches we used to have before and the bricks at the gazebo. A lot of it comes down to people who want a memorial actually aren't going to do what the Foxes did. They want to be able to call up and say, I want a bench, I want a picnic table, I want a flagstone at the gazebo. And they really don't want to have to go through the process of designing it and pricing it out. They kind of want to be able to say, I want 2 Adirondack chairs or a picnic table. It really is actually, while this could limit some people, it actually provides guidance for other people who are going to want something, but they don't want to go through every step, especially in the grieving process. Sometimes they just want to do that. I can't remember what the other point was I was going to make about that. So
Yeah, Mayor, I think we had to go through actually quite a few steps because we didn't really have policy applicable. And I think the whole intention of trying to come up with like a resolution and a policy was to actually try to make it easier for someone if they wanted to do it.
Right. Oh, and the other thing about bricks or flagstone, and we learned this the hard way when we were getting flagstone for the gazebo, is they're usually not a one-off. It usually needs to be a project of having, a certain number. Otherwise, it can be pretty costly. But if you have a drive and you have a specific project, quite often people will, a bunch of people will buy bricks and then we can afford to do it. So that's been kind of the holdup with when people want one more.
If, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, please.
this item was the town clerk, he's championing this particular resolution. And he thought it was just the right thing to do to ask the planning commission's input and recommendation to the board, who will be considering the resolution at the June meeting. So all of your comments can be taken to the board in a memo. If the commission has one particular recommendation, a consensus, that can also be carried forward. It's just an item from the clerk for your consideration.
Okay, I just want, well, I'm making all kinds of comments here. Can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead. I was
I
trying
just
to
don't want to eliminate a craftsman here in our community who wants to build a bench and doesn't want to spend $2,600. Maybe he spends $500 of his own money and creates a $5,000 bench that sits in our park. I want to make provision for people to be able to use their gifts and talents if they're going to do something like the Foxes did. They hired somebody to do it. And there needs to be some flexibility there where people can come through the system with their own ideas and their own projects and say, this is what I want to do, and not say, well, you have to buy this bench and you have to go through these people. The bricks and all that I can understand, but I just don't want to lock us into something that locks this community out of contributing their arts and talents.
Yeah, Gregory, I'm not quite getting that out of that item 1. Again, it looks like the only thing that's dictated in that is the bronze plaque.
Well, to me, when I read it, it says the cost of a memorial bench or brick shall be set. And that's pretty strong language.
Well, it also says only the town or an approved contractor.
Can install it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not there.
It says only the town or contractor may install. And I think that's a liability issue. I think they have to approve who's installing it. No matter if it's home built or manufactured, I think that's a liability question.
Okay.
Like the town has a fee schedule, and I think that's probably what Gregory's concern is as well.
Yeah. One comment I have is, are we trying to do this as like an administrative type of thing, or is it still got to go through planning?
Well, this would make it administrative unless it was an exception, such as the Foxes is how I read it. But what you can do is what Julia was saying, put together your objections or ideas and then forward that to the board with this.
Yeah. You know, my personal thoughts were, okay, maybe open up number one a little bit. And then, you know, so that people can come forth with like, you know, what's been done before, that we just got done approving. And I think I'd like to see if clarification on whether or not it would have to actually go through planning commission and board of trustees, or just, or one or the other, or is it an administrative function? And that piece ought to be in the resolution, I think.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in the instance of the Fox family, that would have been a revocable permit because the proposal was to occupy public property. So that would have been handled under the revocable, and that would have gone through planning commission and board of trustees. However, in this instance, when you're creating this resolution, this will limit it to an administrative process in the public right of way on public
Okay.
land.
Do we need to clarify that language in the actual resolution itself?
Now, let me pull up the resolution.
Yeah, I'm looking at, because the actual resolution says memorial bench, memorial brick policy attached here to is hereby adopted. Anyone wishing to donate complete and sign application. Right by town. Yeah, so there would be an administrative. Town will contact the applicant. So yeah, it could possibly make it an administrative function. I see that now. Because you're basically pulling it in by reference. And so, yeah, so my thoughts on it would be to maybe open up number one a little bit to you know, maybe include certain types of things, but then you get into, okay, someone wants to do this huge bench, and we possibly could get into a little bit of a bind if someone goes really extravagant. So commissioners, do we put any kind of limitations, you know, instead of kind of what we have there, we could make it open, but do we want to bound it? And that could be a recommendation that we put up as well. And bounding it, we could say, here's the size limit. And we may, you know, and if there's, I don't know if we'd actually need to do a weight limit, but at least the size limit. And then leave it open for what the people want to do for their memorial. That's a question back to the commissioners. Do we want to do something like that?
I don't know that size is the whole issue. I just wonder if it needs to be, and again, not to make it more complicated, but if it needs to be not just administrative, if it needs to go be run by the planning commission. This town has a great love for art. And so again, you could have a very artistic looking bench that's somebody's creation or concept. And maybe we would want to have a look at that, and it wouldn't just be the town clerk deciding whether or not that's okay.
Another option is we could say, the Inglewood style. Okay, if you want an administrative type of function, here's the Inglewood style. You get the recycled plastic or the metal. And then also put in the item 1, if someone does not want to do that, then they should go take their presentation to the planning commission.
I like it.
That way, if someone just wants the standard type of thing and they really don't want to deal with it, they just like to have a memorial, they can come in and say either the recycled or the metal, and administratively sign it off, away you go. If you want to do something more extravagant, please, it would go through the planning commission for approval.
I like it. If that's a motion, I second it.
Okay. And Paul, I see your message. As long as we have 3 people online, we still have the quorum.
Okay, folks, I'm gonna have to drop off in about, I'm sorry, about 10 minutes or so. I'm in the Eastern time zone, and unfortunately I have an early day tomorrow, but I'll hang on for another 10 if there's a vote.
Okay. So the motion would be to recommend to the board the adoption of resolution 2021-10 with the recommendation that a standard be created. And this is getting awful wordy. Based on Inglewood, right? Yeah. Inglewood with option to go through planning commission for something outside standard.
Second.
I'm still writing it. Standard. Okay, I moved and Lamar seconded. All in favor? Aye.
All right.
Opposed?
I'm going to abstain from voting on that.
Okay. Abstain. Okay, so we got Todd, Paul, and Lamar. 4, so it would pass with Gregory abstaining. Okay, so that would mean the motion actually passes. So our next item, and that would actually close the public hearing. So item number 8, trustee report. Trustee Guthrie, you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, there's not much new to report, but I just was looking at the comp plan, and on page 48, there's a goal regarding the appearance and vitality of downtown. And within that list is that parking spaces need to be addressed for short-term and long-term use. And and that this would be designed in a way that would facilitate safe backing movement. And also the provision of Wi-Fi access downtown. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the managed parking kiosks will enable Wi-Fi access in the downtown area. So those were just a couple of things that that I wanted to bring to the attention of the Planning Commission. And of course, there's other things on that list that we're also pursuing, things like the ADA access is part of that list. And the something that you've looked at today is benches and other kinds of improvements on a pedestrian scale. I don't know if the commissioners have any questions for me to relate to the board, but I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, commissioners, any items to relate to the board? Go ahead, Lamar.
Just had a question about the Wi-Fi. It was my understanding that the kiosks would be using Wi-Fi, but it was not my understanding that they would be producing Wi-Fi for use of townspeople. So I just don't know and am unclear about that.
I know it's been brought up earlier, back when we first started discussing managed parking. And I was trying to find that in the proposal. I don't know if Jane can answer that, but I don't know how we could use Wi-Fi if they don't have the capability of making that connection.
Right, and that was my question about the plan all along, is how they were going to be able to use Wi-Fi that we find a lot of times is inadequate.
They said they were gonna have boosters on all of their kiosks, and they were gonna put the kiosks strategically through town. So is it gonna give Wi-Fi to the whole town? No, but it's gonna improve accessibility in the downtown area.
And that's really where it's most needed.
Yeah, it's, if I could comment on that, it's not a risk for the town per se as it is for the parking company. But it sounded like they were basing the fundamental communication on cellular. And I don't know for sure, but I've heard some rumblings that, you know, there's a nice cell tower just across the highway from across Highway 24. And I have a concern if the owners of that cell tower decommission it, and I've heard some sound bites here and there that cell tower may get decommissioned. I don't know. But if they're needing that for the cellular service, then it's probably going to be a problem for them. And it looks like I froze.
We can still hear you.
You can still hear me. Okay, thank you.
We can still hear you.
Okay.
Well,
So yeah, it's not a risk for the town. It's really a risk for the parking company to ensure that they can continue to get the cell service they needed in order to do the Wi-Fi. Otherwise, they'd have to look into getting some kind of other type of, like a Comcast type system to supply their needs.
And that's all speculation. And if we're gonna speculate, we've also speculated that a cell tower was gonna go up at the fire department property.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah. I've heard that. And like I said, it's really not the town's concern. It's really a concern really for the parking company. But I'd hate to see them base something that may not be there. So I hope they're doing their homework.
Yeah, well, this is something that was brought up to our consultant from the get-go. I mean, it was pretty clear to all of us here that that's essential to this type of a service. We would have to have that kind of connection.
Boosters won't help if you don't have the Wi-Fi to start with.
Yeah, that's true as well. You got to have signal to boost in order for those to work.
Anything else?
Yeah, I did have something to take back to the board. We're getting into this code rewrite setup, and we've got some things that are kind of overlapping, specifically the wildland urban interface type things. So I'm kind of wondering if we need to maybe clarify, if some group is expected to kind of take the lead. My impression is Planning Commission probably ought to take the lead and try to coordinate everything and go that direction. But that's really kind of a question for the board, since there are overlap, especially with fire mitigation and maybe even parks and rec. I'm not sure about that one, but especially with fire mitigation. Do we need clarification to say, okay, certain group kind of take the lead on this and make sure you're coordinating and bringing everyone in, and then report to the board? Or it's just a feel. What do you Catherine, what do you think?
I was looking at the earlier version of the agenda, and it's true that there's some obvious overlap. I was thinking about the even with things like the benches for the parks, that's also something that goes into the the area of the Park Recs and Trails Committee. I think there isn't a lot of overlap, and that can be a good thing. We certainly don't want to cause any confusion or redundancy. The type of work, research that each of the committees is doing. I think it's a good thing to bring to the board, because I personally, I certainly can't give the Planning Commission direction about that issue. So I guess your question is, whose jurisdiction is that to look at the code regarding wildlands and I'm sorry, what else were you?
Yeah, it's wildland urban interface, and it's really, should the Planning Commission take the lead? And maybe I should go to the commissioners first and say, are we okay with taking the lead on that? Any thoughts, commissioners?
We are, sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
We're a planning commission and we're advisory, and I don't want to be pushing on a rope with the Board of Trustees. I'd like them to clarify what it is they would like us to do. And I agree with you that we can make overtures and say we can take the lead for this, but it needs to come from them.
Yeah. What I was thinking of, we could possibly do have staff draft a memo up to the board.
Todd, we lost you.
Yet.
Yes, now.
Okay. Yeah.
Good.
We could put together a memo to the board saying, hey, we recommend, since there is overlap, we can take lead, especially in the wildland urban interface. That's the one that's got my attention now. we could do something like that, or we could just have Catherine go up and report, say, hey, board, we'd like clarification. Planning Commission is offering to take the lead. So I'm way open to either process, whichever one works.
Okay, I know, just speaking for myself, I can see advantages to both the Planning Commission and the Fire Mitigation Committee looking at that particular issue. And with fire mitigation being the priority that it is, my leaning is towards that, but I think it's a really good thing to discuss at the board level about how we'd like to proceed.
Okay, so yeah, so maybe the question back to the board is, could the board clarify who might take the lead on code rewrite when we're talking about wildland urban interface?
All right, thank you.
The other thing is that along those same lines, wildland urban interface, we need to be really careful as we're going through this code rewrite, that we make sure we have whatever we put in, the capabilities to oversee it are within Green Mountain Falls. And with something like wildland urban interface, if Pikes Peak Regional Building, for example, can take the, like the hardening of the structure, I think we really need to try to figure out who would have oversight of the code and the enforcement. So we need to be careful, and we need to kind of keep that in mind as we're going through this. And Julia, by chance, did you get any feedback from Pikes Peak Regional?
I'm waiting for some answers from their building department on what their capabilities are for review. I think I'm happy to take a memo to the board for their June meeting on the topic of hazards planning, but I think we'll get a little bit of direction on the May 25th meeting, which is when Nina and Zach intend to present the annotated code outline. And so
Are you saying we need to hold off on requesting clarification from the board?
Well, hazards planning is important, but I think we're putting the cart before the horse, because I don't know that whether it's going to be included. And I am speaking not specifically to fire mitigation, but all types of hazards. There are a number. So, but maybe the commission can talk to Nina at the 25th meeting. And then if there's still an outstanding question, we can take something to the board.
Okay, so Catherine, it sounds like we need to table that request for now until after our May 25th.
Okay, I still appreciate you bringing it up.
Okay. Yep. Is there anything else? If not, we'll move on to item number 9, housekeeping and any announcements.
Special meeting, May 25th,
Okay.
6:30 p.m.
Any feedback for how things kind of went tonight, since we really kind of had a oddball type situation? Anything come to mind as something that we could use as constructive feedback? So I mean, there's going to be more, at least with the some of the additional property feedback items.
My last comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I appreciated everyone's participation and congeniality and voicing their opinions in a polite way. It was great to be a part of this tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's the real goal. I mean, quite honestly, it gets scary if we all do agree sometimes on everything. But yeah, it's good to have an open, honest discussion and debate, and then everyone votes their opinion. And yeah, it works really well. Go ahead, Lamar.
I was thinking the same thing, and I'm so glad, Gregory, that you said that, and I couldn't agree more. I love to serve on a board or a commission where there's a lot of smart people that have a lot of good experience, and they bring that to the table, and they bring it openly, and state what they have to say. And I just feel like everybody's statements were so valuable and helpful this evening. So thank you to everyone.
And thank you, Lamar and Gregory, for sticking with us so we can keep our quorum going. Like saying, I think Sean got called out on something fire related out in LA. So I'm not sure when he's going to be back with us. So, but I appreciate everyone showing up. And if there's nothing else, it is 8:37 and we will adjourn. Oh, Jane, did you have something?
I was just saying, get your shots and we can have a public meeting. I won't give it to you.
No comment. Okay, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thanks, everyone.
Night.
Night.